Is Utah an affordable place to live? That's a bit of a loaded question because it depends on what's most important to you when it comes to affordability, and it depends on what state you're relocating from and what you're used to when it comes to prices. In this video, we're going to cover topics like housing, taxes, transportation, entertainment, food, all those things that are important in your daily life to figure out if Utah is in fact an affordable place to live. Let's get after it. Hey guys, this is Scott with the Salt Lake City Living Team. This channel is all about what it's like to actually live here in the Salt Lake City market. So whether you plan on moving here in 5 days or 5 months, please reach out to us. Shoot us a phone call, a text, a DM, or an email. We would love to connect with you and help you make that seamless transition to Utah. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the latest information about the Salt Lake City market. Now, it's important to remember that every state is going to have different tax laws. You can't just look at one type of taxes and say, oh, this state has cheap taxes. You got to look at things like property taxes versus income state tax versus sales tax. Of course, the federal government and the state government needs taxes to help pay for a lot of the public services that we have, but every state's going to be a little bit different. So let's dive into specifically where does Utah rank when it comes to both county and local taxes. Just a quick backstory, I actually grew up in Oregon that doesn't have sales tax. So when I was a kid and I went to Subway to buy a Subway sandwich and get that $5 footlong, it only cost me $5. It wasn't until I left Oregon to go to school in California that I realized sales tax is a thing. Now, almost all states, with the exception of a few, have sales tax. Let me tell you a little bit about where Utah ranks on that list. The states with the top 5 highest property taxes are New Jersey, Illinois, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont. I don't know if it's a coincidence that all 5 of those are in the Northeast. But the states with the 5 lowest property taxes are Hawaii, Alabama, Colorado, Nevada, and South Carolina. And just outside of that top 5 is Utah. So Utah does have a relatively low property tax rate, coming in at number 6. Another consideration is state income tax. Now here's a second story. When I was active duty in the military, the first thing I did was become a resident of Florida because Florida and Texas do not have state income tax. Whereas when I got out and moved to Utah, I then had to start paying that income tax. You need to look at all these factors when you're considering how much money are you going to keep versus how much money is Uncle Sam going to take out of your pocket. When it comes to entertainment, you have a full spectrum of what it costs to have things to do in the Salt Lake City market. So I'm gonna give you the full gambit from the free version all the way to the more expensive things to do in Salt Lake City. Some of these are pretty unique to this market that you're not gonna find anywhere else. Let's start with the easy stuff. So some of the free things you can do is obviously come to the park. That's where we are right now. This is Sugar House Park. You can see the lake behind me, very popular. Walking around here, you've got people walking dogs, hanging out, enjoying the sunshine, going for a run. Some of the other popular parks in the area is going to be Liberty Park. You've got the Willow Creek Park in the Sandy area, as well as the Riverton City Park, which has amazing facilities from pickleball courts to basketball courts. You've got outdoor seating facilities, places where you can come gather the family for a family reunion. Just about anything you can think of, those are all going to be free. Of course, Utah is known for its world-renowned hiking and biking trails. You can find those all over the place in Salt Lake City, especially up against the East Bench on the east side of the valley. We have some of the best hiking and biking trails available. And of course, those are usually open year-round. I see people going for a run or walking their dog, even in the dead of winter when we have a ton of snow. So definitely something to consider. If you enjoy the outdoors, Salt Lake City is definitely the place for you. Some of the more affordable things to do that's either great for a date night or great to go take your family would be things like Antelope Island is world-renowned over the Salt Lake. Costs about $15 to $20 per vehicle. Great afternoon activity. Of course, you also have camping around here. Salt Lake City is really known for the outdoors, not just the parks, but the camping that is within a 20-minute drive. Not very many markets have campsites that close and that available, just a short drive away in places like Mill Creek Canyon. The Hoggle Zoo has prices that fluctuate depending on the time of year, but you're looking at about $15 to $20 per person, depending on if it's for adults or children. A great opportunity to go check out some animals that you wouldn't necessarily see otherwise. The Hoggle Zoo is another great, relatively inexpensive entertainment piece. If you're looking to spend a little bit more money and you want to go have sort of a one-time adventure or go out on maybe a little bit nicer date, a couple of recommendations would be obviously the Sandy Aquarium. It's a lot of fun even for adults, but you can take your kids there. I think the pass right now is around $60 to $80 for an annual pass. You can actually get in whenever you want. It's a lot of fun. If you're more into arts and theater, the Hale Center Theater has some amazing shows. Those are going to be a little bit more costly. You're looking at around $50 to $60 depending on how close you're sitting to the stage. Now, the list would not be complete if we didn't mention some sports. Of course, we have the Utah Jazz here in Salt Lake City. Just like any other NBA game, those tickets can vary widely in cost, but they're a lot of fun. I've had the opportunity to sit in some box seats before. Of course, the prices are going to range, but you're looking at spending at least $75 to $100 to go to a Jazz game, but something you should definitely consider if you're into sports. The last on the list that's the most expensive, but arguably the most popular, is to get an annual ski pass. Park City, Big Cottonwood Canyon, Little Cottonwood Canyon, some of the best skiing in the world. People travel from all over the country and all over the world to come ski here in Salt Lake City. Those passes can be quite expensive. They usually have an early bird special where you can save a few $100, but plan to spend at least $1,000 to get an annual ski pass. If you're into winter sports, you can't pass up the opportunity, but it's gonna cost quite a bit just to get a single annual pass. Yeah, when it comes to the cost of food in Utah, it's pretty much on par with most of the country. If you're gonna go out to eat at a restaurant, of course, there's the super high-end 5-star restaurants, and then there's a little bit more affordable places to eat. And when it comes to grocery stores, most people shop at Smith's. They have them all over the place. You don't have to go very far to get to a Smith's from your house, which is kind of nice. And of course, they have all those higher-end grocery stores too, like the Whole Foods or the Trader Joe's. The Harmon's is a really popular one that has just about everything you can imagine. People like to go to some of those higher end grocery stores, especially if they're looking for unique ingredients or certain types of food. You will see some like Sprouts, although that tends to be a little more common in places like California, Arizona. There's maybe one or two in the Salt Lake Valley. But the overall cost of food is about what you would expect in most places of the country. Of course, there's other markets like California or Hawaii, where some of those grocery stores and restaurants can get super expensive, but you can pretty much budget for what you would expect from the average prices across country. If you're trying to be a little bit more conscious about your food budget, a lot of people do shop at Costco. You can buy, of course, a lot more food for less money, especially if you have a bigger family or you like to buy a lot of food in bulk. Costco is definitely a staple for a lot of people living here in Salt Lake City, and they have several locations across the valley. So gas in Utah right now is actually like just over $4. It's gone up a little bit. We were under $2 like not too long ago, but the price of gas is about on par with most of the country. Right now it's fluctuating around $4. We checked out a few different gas stations around here. I like that they keep them relatively clean around here, but a downside, Utah has a very strict liquor law. So if you are going to go into the convenience store to buy alcohol, the most you're going to find is a 5% BAV. So you're going to have to go essentially to a state store if you want to buy liquor or anything stronger than that. There's a lot of them around here, so you don't have to travel very far to get from one city to another. There's tons of gas stations around here. You really don't have to go very far if you got to fill up your tank. I travel a lot for real estate, so oftentimes I go in to grab a snack. They're usually super polite. They always say hello, very friendly, and they keep gas stations, as dirty as they are, relatively clean, which I appreciate. There's what you can expect for gas pricing and affordability if you're thinking about moving to Salt Lake. All right, let's talk about housing affordability, right? Kind of interesting term these days, especially if you're talking about real estate in Salt Lake City, because it can be quite expensive. Now, of course, this is going to be entirely dependent on the area you're looking in. There's some very high-priced neighborhoods. You probably heard of some of these: St. Mary's, Olympus Cove, Pepperwood. So you're definitely going to pay a pretty penny if you're trying to get into these very exclusive, very high-end luxury neighborhoods. However, if you're looking at Salt Lake County in general, our average price point is actually $615,000. That is significantly higher than the median sales price across the US. So yes, houses here are very expensive. There's a few reasons for that I want to dive into. The first has to do with housing shortage. If you haven't seen this video already, we talked about it in our previous video of why there is such a lack of inventory of houses here in Salt Lake City. It's also important to understand that Salt Lake City is the hottest job market according to this Wall Street Journal article. So a lot of people are wanting to relocate to Salt Lake City, especially if you work in the tech or finance industry, which is really driving this boom to make Salt Lake City the hottest job market in the entire country. So when you have all these people moving here, but you don't have enough houses, guess what? Supply and demand, prices go through the roof, which is what we've seen, especially in the last few years. Now, of course, there are going to be some areas that are going to be less expensive in general. For example, Utah County is only about $560,000, only $560,000. But compared to Salt Lake County, on average, you'll be able to find a little bit less expensive homes down there. Since 2019, so in the last 5 years, the average house in Salt Lake City has gone up $178,000. That is a lot of appreciation. In fact, in the last 5 years, the average Salt Lake home has averaged a 7.8% year-over-year appreciation. That is an insane amount of growth. So I will say it is quite difficult to get into the Salt Lake City housing market, but once you do, I'm not gonna say you've got it made, but you have a ton of opportunity for growth and appreciation and equity gain if you can make that first step to actually get into the housing market. Salt Lake City has a lot going for it in the future, so there's a lot of people wanting to move here, not just for the hot job market, but also for cultural reasons. By the way, Salt Lake City, in case you didn't know, is one of the front runners of also getting a Major League Baseball expansion team. So it's possible that we could have the Utah Jazz, the Coyotes in hockey, and a Major League Baseball team on top of all the other sports franchises that we have in the area. Utah is also a top nominee to host the 2034 Winter Olympics. Now, if you remember the last time that Salt Lake City hosted the Olympics, it immediately put Salt Lake City on the map, and you saw a huge growth in population. Anytime that happens, the economy gets going, fiscal stability is strengthened, the housing market becomes really, really strong. And I would imagine if we got the Olympics again in 2034, you're gonna see that jump even more. If you're trying to get into Utah's housing market, of course, you need to take advantage of some of these things, such as grants that are offered by the state through Utah Housing, or if you go new construction, a lot of times you can get builder incentives to cover your down payment, buy down your interest rate in order to get into the housing market. But once you do, man, Salt Lake City has shown a ton of resilience through things like COVID, presidential elections, and we're only seeing the market go higher and higher and higher. Of course, no one can predict the future, but it's hard to argue that between what Salt Lake is currently experiencing and what we're likely to have in the future, that trend won't continue. So overall, Utah can be a relatively affordable place to live. However, you'll notice that there are some areas such as real estate that can be on the higher end if you're comparing it to other markets across the country. Because of the massive growth and the increase in population here and the lack of housing availability, it's really skyrocketed prices here, especially in the last few years. But if you're looking at affordability overall and you're comparing it to a lot of these other markets that people are moving to, such as New York, California, Utah can definitely be more affordable when you're looking at the total lifestyle. If you found this video helpful or interesting, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get the latest videos when we post them about living in Salt Lake City. Talk to you soon.